You useless, slipless, assless, loser-ass bitch. Don't ever come here and talk to black people like that again.
How are progressive TikTokers going to resist Trump when they can't even cope with a microaggression without imploding in spectacular fashion? We're going to break down a truly wild story from the world of progressive TikTok, plus Amazon feuding with the Trump administration, and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. Up first, guys, like I mentioned, honestly, buckle up, get ready, because we're going to go through one of the craziest stories, just this lengthy saga that's tearing apart progressive TikTok right now that I've come across in some time. So the context here is that Charlie Kirk, a very prominent MAGA Republican commentator and influencer, does this thing where he goes around to college campuses and promotes MAGA ideas, and he debates left-wing college students and owns them and all this. It can be kind of cringe at times, but it is what it is. Progressive influencers on TikTok in particular, understandably, want to counter-program him or do something to rebuff his activism because Republicans have made huge gains with young men in particular, but people college age and below. And obviously, if you're progressive, you would want to stop that. So they put together something called the America Tour, which is their counter-programming, spearheaded by these two very popular progressive TikTokers, Dean Withers and Parker Get a Job, who I've actually had on my channel, both of whom, strong Biden supporters, very liberal, love to debate Trump supporters and own them. They're very similar to Charlie Kirk in a lot of ways, but kind of from the opposite perspective. They put together this tour to deprogram people and fight back against Trump, MAGA, all this. And it has imploded in spectacular fashion in one of the funniest but also most revealing examples of how, as Trump has said, everything woke goes to shit. So I'll just put on screen here the America Tour's website, and I think you may be able to see the problem just from this. They've got their branding here, and then they've got featuring Dean Withers at its Dean and Parker Get a Job. You can see the two of them there next to this branding, and I'm sure you can see where this is going. There's a big problem here. They have two spearheading figures for this movement that's being put together by progressive TikTok influencers, and they are both the horror, cis, heterosexual, white men. But that didn't stop there from originally being a lot of interest in this. This was organized by a woman named Z Cohen Sanchez, who they just call Z, and they raised over $115,000 for this tour. But then it started to get some criticism, both for being unorganized and not particularly well done, but also, notably, for having two white male content creators as the face of this whole movement, which, for woke progressives in 2025, is an unforgivable sin, apparently. Then the organizer, Z, made the mistake of going into a TikTok live struggle session with a bunch of black female content creators who were criticizing the America Tour, and, well, it did not go well for Z. Take a listen to this first clip.
You know what? Perfect. Z. She's actually going to be running the campaign, so I would love to hear from her. Or is she her, right, Z?
Yeah, that's correct. No, I mean, I appreciate, pushback in any respect. Obviously I'm an organizer. I'm used to that. I think that having conversations where we say things like, this is so unorganized, which came out of multiple people's mouths, things like that, are directly harming the people of color that are behind this tour, that are working tirelessly to make this happen. And I'm just telling you guys that because I know that you don't know, okay? But the majority of the people behind this tour that are staying up late, working on this, because this is not easy. You think that getting 50 plus people to another state to do this is easy? Because it's not, right? And so we have young people that are putting everything into this, that are scared of this administration. And then people are saying that they're unorganized.
There's no. So as somebody who's done organizing within her own community, that's why I'm saying this.
So the she, her, right? Your pronouns thing at the beginning is just such a nice touch because it sums up where these people are coming from rather perfectly. Now, I will say this. Throughout the course of this saga, which gets crazy, I view Z as the more sympathetic figure for reasons that you will understand if you stick with me to the end of this podcast. However, this was incredibly cringe. People are calling out this tour for being unorganized and chaotic and a hot mess, and it sounds like it was. Obviously, I don't really know. I wasn't there, but the first stop of this tour and the build-up to it was criticized for being chaotic, and she says, "You can't call us unorganized because we have people of color working hard behind the scenes." That's dumb. That's a cop-out and is just nonsense. People of color could be doing a great job or could be doing a bad job. It's nonsense to just invoke their race as a shield from criticism. So it was cringe. But was it like a hate crime? Was it a severe microaggression? Because this, as well as other things that were said in this exchange that I'm going to show you, got Z branded a racist, dumped by all the progressive content creators she had platformed and put up into this tour, and started a woke civil war. We're going to watch the second clip that gets even more insane and blatantly racist, but in the opposite direction, towards white people, after this quick break. I don't want to end up like these people.
What I ate today as a fatty.
Good morning, fatties. A pancake, breakfast sandwich.
That's why I use Lumen, an amazing tool that helps me feel better in my body and maintain a healthy weight. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on with your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to stay on top of your health game. You can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause, and adjust your recommendations to help keep your metabolism healthy during hormonal changes, so you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step in your health journey, go to lumen.me/Brad to get 15% off your Lumen. That is LUMEN.me/Brad for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring today's episode, and now back to the show. So the second clip here from this TikTok live struggle session with all these black content creators plus Z is where things really start to become unhinged. Take a listen.
Oh, okay. So are we not able to critique when things are done in bad faith? When it's by another
why are
person
you
of color?
assuming that they're done in bad faith?
I mean as if they are done in a myopic way, they can lead to significant harm. It can lead to a net negative of the overall leftist movement, which I don't believe that most people are.
How is this a net negative? Explain.
Right.
Yeah, please.
So
Explain her.
Right. In terms of a leftist movement, I think from bare bones, having two white men as a forefront is always going to be a net negative. No movement has ever helped by having white people at the front. I'm going to tell you that right now.
And
that's not even because.
Why
are you talking over me? I think a lot of the issues that a lot of YT people have when they hold to particular progressive standards is that in order to get other white people to listen, they need to have white people at the forefront. But I think the second you capitulate to any form of racism or bias, you have already lost this, right? So despite the fact that people are working really hard to get all this up and moving, no, I would actually make the argument that it still causes some significant harm. So I don't know why you have an issue with me, because I don't know who you are. But it seems like you already have a particular bias going on here.
Wow. So remember, guys, the takeaway from this conversation later is going to be that Z was a racist to the black women. But as you can hear, this black content creator at least was kind of wildly racist towards white people, saying any movement that has two white people at the front of it is bad and harmful. Not very accepting and tolerant of you, my dear. Sounds actually kind of like woke KKK, if you ask me. But these critics are correct that Z was lame by pushing back and saying, stop criticizing us, we have POC working behind the scenes. But then to take it into this like blatantly anti-white direction was, to me, very toxic. And I watched this whole relevant portion of the TikTok live, and it astounds me that people came away with the idea that Z had been racist and had microaggressed all these black women, when in fact she was subjected to a lot of racism herself, anti-white racism, like in this final clip. Take a listen to this.
I think it's ridiculous for you, a white woman, to tell me, a black woman who has done several organizations for black communities, for people of color, for houseless people, houseless youth, just the youth, about me not knowing anything about organization. As somebody who's like done exactly what you're doing, I'm telling you right now, it's incredibly disorganized. Maybe it's a short time period, and that's the reason why, but you're shit at your job. You want to come up here and you want to wank yourself off to the work that black people, marginalized people are doing. But then at the same time, you won't even put them at the front line of your bullshit ass website. Shut the up. You useless ass, lipless ass, assless, loser ass bitch. Don't ever come here and talk to black people like that again.
Anyway, so I'm just going to talk about why we're doing the tour, since none of y'all know how to have a proper conversation. The whole purpose of following Charlie on this specific tour is because Charlie's been doing this for 15 years with zero pushback from the Democratic Party. He goes to these college campuses, he goes into these frats, he infiltrates them through Turning Point USA, and that's why we've seen a massive increase in Gen Z, specifically young white male Gen Z voters. So we figured who would be the best people to speak to those voters, and we picked Parker and Dean for that specific reason, because if we're trying to go after white young boy voters, we should go after them with young white boys, right? That makes sense.
So, if anything, I give Z credit because she was just like viciously insulted and attacked, and she just kept it moving and went back to trying to explain why they're doing the tour and why she supports it and why she thinks it's important. But this thin-lipped, flat-ass bitch is clearly kind of like an anti-white thing, saying you have no lips, you have no ass, whatever. And yeah, the takeaway from this call, which I didn't show you all of it, but guys, I listened to the whole thing and there was no part where Z treated them like that in return. The takeaway from this call from progressive content creators like this one dude, Peyton, who I'm about to show you, was that Z had been racist and microaggressed the black women, referring to this like woke concept that I don't even think is real, where they say, oh, your minor verbal tics harmed us or whatever. Here's how Peyton, a very prominent woke white dude on TikTok who was originally involved in this movement, here's how he responded to this TikTok live struggle session. Take a listen.
The lead organizer, turns out she's incredibly racist. She hopped on a live last night where a bunch of black women, women creators on this app, who are obviously in the political space, were a little upset, voicing their concerns, talking about how they felt about the Unfuck America tour. And the lead organizer didn't like that very much, and so she hopped on there to spew, anti-black rhetoric, especially towards black women, making them sound like bullies and aggressive, and it was really gross. It was really gross. There's no way you watch this and don't think she's racist, by the way. Like, I went into it going like, what happened? Is this a, you know what I mean? Like, I need to make sure what happened before I come and give any information to anybody, okay? There is no other way to interpret what she did. She was just being racist.
So there is no other way to interpret this other than Z being racist. What? Did we watch different videos? Do we live in different realities? Yes. The answer to that is yes, because my brain is not rotted by the toxicity of identity politics. This guy really just thinks black women claiming racism against a white woman, they must be right, and I must virtue signal my allegiance to them so they don't cancel me. Now, the truth is, she called them bullies and aggressive because they were being incredibly aggressive. They were bullying her. They were attacking her with racially charged insults and her appearance and calling her names and cussing at her and freaking out at her when she tried to explain things. And yes, she was defensive. Yes, she made some stupid arguments and points, and some of them were racially clumsy, like invoking your POC staff as a shield. But it wasn't some racist's rant the way they're acting like it. If anything, it was her being too woke and accidentally being a little bit racially insensitive with that. But I just don't understand how anyone could watch this and come away with this conclusion. But that's what they're all going with, almost all of them, because the main creators, the main influencers who were at the forefront of this tour, Dean and Parker, have agreed that Z was the racist one. They didn't show much loyalty to her, even though she constructed this tour and maybe didn't do a great job organizing it from the sound of it, but certainly I'm sure did her best, and likely, I'm speculating here, but likely did pay them thousands of dollars potentially for speaking fees to go do this event from the 115K she raised. I don't know that she paid them, but that is typical. That is something that happens in those kinds of events and arrangements. You pay a creator to come speak. They didn't seem to show her any loyalty. They immediately throw her under the bus, or a couple days later when they finally get around to addressing it, and say that she was clearly racist, she microaggressed all these black women, and that they are turning against her and denounce her and apologize for not doing so sooner. Here's the first clip of Dean Withers, the main guy on this tour, flagellating himself before the woke mob and trying to apologize for this situation. Take a listen.
The organizer of the America tour, her name is Z, and I want to say maybe 2 or 3 days before we inevitably went boots on the ground in Texas, Z had joined Alive with a panel of black women and had been incredibly microaggressive against them. This was then recorded and word got around. And in fact, I knew that she was on a panel and had gone to shit while it was happening, but it wasn't until the next day that I had learned exactly what she had done. And at that point, we were 2 days out from boots on the ground in Texas. And if we reflect on the last week, you all know that I ended up going to Texas, and I have not spoken about this on my live stream until now. So my first order of business is apologizing to the individuals that are watching this stream that are a member of the BIPOC community for not speaking out about this sooner.
BIPOC community. Guys, that refers to Black, Indigenous people of color. That's not a thing, by the way. There is no BIPOC community. Black people and Indigenous people don't come together. They don't have meetups. Like, there is really, these are different groups that are just all lumped together by this woke acronym they invented a couple years ago. Apologizing to the BIPOC community for the harm I may have caused by appearing at an event a couple days after the organizer of that event went on a call and was insulted and attacked by black women, but criticized them and pushed back mildly in ways that they consider microaggressions, even though they really weren't. Seriously? This is pathetic. To throw someone under the bus like this, to cave to an unhinged, just racially divisive and bizarre mob movement like this. But you know what? It's not surprising. Creators do this a lot. Progressive creators, especially white men who feel very vulnerable to this, they're trying to protect themselves and their own brand and their own interests. So they throw someone else under the bus and then just hop in the apology train to flagellate themselves. It's not surprising, but it is, to me, kind of pathetic. Here's the second bit of this Dean Withers clip.
I now recognize that I could have leveraged my influence and could have basically said that either she holds herself accountable and we see genuine progress, or I'm not going to go. And the likely response would have from the pack would have been, damn, all right, she's either going to hold herself accountable or we're going to kick her off, and we'd still love you to come with. And I didn't do that. And I apologize. I think it's really, really important for everybody to hold themselves to a certain degree of accountability when they do something that they shouldn't have, especially people in the public spotlight, like myself, like Parker, etc., especially white men. Today, me, Parker, Santana, and a bunch of other people that are going to be joining the live here shortly, we were able to get 30 creators, every single creator that went on the tour, on a call, and we came to the conclusion that we will not be continuing this tour under the organization of Z.
The especially white men thing is just so cringe. Actually, no, it's good for everyone to take accountability when they mess up, which in this case, no one really did except the unhinged people who were attacking this white woman in very racially charged terms. However, anyone should take accountability when they mess up, not especially white men. That's, again, it's giving woke KKK. You guys don't sound progressive or open-minded. You sound identity obsessed and divisive. And then, I mean, the second part where all these creators are coming together to throw this woman under the bus, get her removed from her own tour that she organized, all just caving to these blatantly false accusations that she did some sort of racist attack on these people who were, if anything, the ones attacking her in very racially charged terms, is just wild. but it's the kind of chaos these things seem to always descend into. Literally, guys, they tried to do a campus tour of just having content creators go to some college campuses to debate people and promote their ideas. And it imploded into a woke civil war of people pointing the finger at each other and canceling each other over trumped up fake racism, outrage, and scandals before the very first stop of the tour. And they're probably, it looks like, from the latest update I could find, the tour is not moving forward. They're not having a second stop, at least not right now, because they're trying to get rid of Z, but that hasn't happened. And so they're not going forward with this tour. So they tried to counter-resist MAGA and Charlie Kirk, and yet didn't even make it through 2 stops of their tour before imploding in spectacular fashion under the weight and the strain of their extreme identity-obsessed politics that still continue, unfortunately, to corrode the online left beyond belief and beyond parody. Y'all are not going to resist Trump. You're not going to stop MAGA when you can't even keep your own shit together without constantly inventing fake victimhood, imploding into scandals, and all turning against each other because of perceived microaggressions. You can't handle a microaggression and you think you're going to stop MAGA. Grow up. This is wild and, frankly, not impressive as to the state of the online left. These are not small people. These are huge content creators with massive platforms and influence, and yet still, because of this fragile ideology that they're so engrossed with still, they can't achieve anything meaningful. They can't provide any sort of meaningful check or pushback to the Trump administration or to MAGA commentators like Charlie Kirk, because they are collapsing under the weight of their own insane ideology. And in one sense, it's hilarious. It's delicious to watch because it's comedic gold. But in another sense, if you're somebody who thinks that we genuinely do need 2 strong sides in this country advocating for their ideas in a serious fashion, it is sad for our country and pathetic, and just pathetic to see this kind of display from these individuals. What do you guys think? Can you believe this is real life? Can you believe this all actually happened? And that so many people are still in this kind of mindset? I unfortunately can, because I've spent a lot of time on TikTok, but still, it doesn't cease to amaze me just how delulu some of these people are and just how little they seem to have learned about the perils of extreme identity politics. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and do hit that like button as well. Remember to send me voice notes. Just leave a name. It doesn't even have to be your real first name. Send me like 90 seconds. Tell me about a crazy scenario in your life that you could use some advice with or want to share with our audience. I'll be reacting in an upcoming episode. And remember to check out the Your Delulu is Showing merch. My boyfriend worked really hard on it, and we're going to drop some new items soon, but want to sell what we have left of this first line first. Do check that all out at the link in the description. And now we got to check in with the Trump administration and Amazon, because the girls are fighting. There is drama, there is tea, and they are not getting along. Amazon just announced, as Punchbowl News reports, Amazon is going to start displaying the tariff costs for consumers. The story reads, Amazon doesn't want to shoulder the blame for the cost of President Donald Trump's trade war, so the e-commerce giant will soon show how much Trump's tariffs are adding to the price of each product, according to a person familiar with the plan. So the idea here is pretty simple. And when you check out on Amazon, it's going to show you the price plus how much it's charging from the tariffs, because of the tariffs being imposed on goods that come into the country and goods that are used in the production of goods that even are made in America. So it'll be like $20 tariff charge, $12, total $32. That's the idea, to show people the effect of this stuff, and to, from Amazon's perspective, say, listen, we're charging you higher prices, but it's not our fault. We just got hit with these new taxes, so here's what it is. And the Trump administration, shocker, not happy about this. Take a listen to Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, discussing this news today.
So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect, crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this, since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon. And Secretary, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, sorry, no. I don't think it's a hostile or political action. I think it's a business decision that's based in truth. Economists agree. Tariffs are, at least in large part, borne by the consumers of products. If you're buying things that are made in other countries, those companies have to pay the tariff, which is a huge additional cost when they bring them into the country. And of course, that's going to be passed along to consumers. It's economics 101. And even goods that are made in America require inputs and materials that are made in other countries, so even they are affected by tariffs. So things do get more expensive, and I don't think it's hostile to show people that. She has a point that there was a lot of inflation under the Biden administration. I don't think it was all his fault, but his policies, like the massive stimulus bill he signed after coming into office, definitely made it worse. But no, they didn't put like a Biden inflation surcharge, because in that case, everything's getting more expensive, and it's happening throughout the whole economy. It's hard to identify what's specifically because of inflation. And so just prices overall went up. Now you have literally one thing making specific goods more expensive. So they can show it as a surcharge. It wouldn't even have been possible or plausible to do that for Biden's inflation. So that's just kind of whataboutism. And I don't actually think that Amazon is hostile to the Trump administration. Not inherently so. I mean, Bezos got a lot of flack, Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, because he purposefully killed the Washington Post, which he also owns, their plan to endorse Kamala Harris. He congratulated President Trump on his victory and said that he felt optimistic about a second Trump term. So this is not somebody in Jeff Bezos who is totally hostile to Trump. Maybe it might just be that his policies are going to hurt consumers, and Amazon wants to let them know. That is not hostile, and it is not even that political, and it's certainly not treason. Yet that's what Breitbart News suggested. They shared this story on their Twitter account, their official Breitbart News account, and said, it's treason then. What the actual heck? That's not what words mean. Accurately informing consumers about price changes and what's causing them is not a betrayal of your country. It's not aiding and abetting enemies to the United States, and it's not a crime whatsoever. This is just, I mean, maybe they're just being hyperbolic, but no matter what, it's an absolutely deranged thing for a supposedly serious news outlet to post on social media. Others, like Republican Senator Josh Hawley, also attacked Amazon for this, writing in a tweet, Amazon finally admits most of its products come from China. Laughing face emoji. No, not really, Josh. Sick attempted dunk, but Trump actually imposed tariffs not just on China, but on basically every country, almost every country. So not the bar you think it is. I agreed with this tweet from commentator Robbie Swab. Partisanship is rotting the brains of too many people on the right. It is good for companies to loudly and explicitly protest when the government tries to make their products more expensive, which would be obvious to most people if it were Obama or Biden doing this rather than Trump. I agree. This is price transparency, and I don't think it's at all a bad thing as long as it's accurate and correct, which we don't know that it's not because it hasn't started yet. And it's certainly not treason or hostile or political. All of this is just a cope from the Trump administration, if you ask me. They support tariffs. They say they're going to raise revenue. They say they're going to have all these great effects, and that's fine if you believe that. I don't, but if you believe that, you should at least be willing to acknowledge the downsides, the trade-offs, which are increased costs to consumers, and you can argue it's worth it, but don't then attack people and get mad at them for simply pointing out the downsides of your policies. That's just my take on it, though. You guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, guys, that's it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you so much. Thanks to Lumen for sponsoring today's episode. Do check them out at the link in the description. Remember to send me a voice note. Remember to check out the merch. Do subscribe. Do like. Yada, yada, yada. And we'll talk again real soon.